皆さん、こんにちは。私はイアンと言います。私は日本語を勉強している大学生で、今3年間日本語を勉強しています。それに、アジア研究の健康、すみません、アジア研究の専攻の他には、日本語を副専攻しています。今日、少しこの動画で、日本語の文法のビデオレクチャーが発表したいと思います。特に、このビデオレクチャーは、よという文法や、よを使う表現についてレクチャーでしょう。もちろん私は先生ではなくて、教授ではなくて、私は文法が好きな大学生だけですよ。でも、よく、文法で困っている学生は多いですよね。ですから、私が少しわかることが、少しだけ説明できることはいいでしょう。ね。少しできたらそれはいい。でも、始める前に、一つの面白い質問がありますね。それは、どうして用という文法や用を使う表現について説明したいと思いますか？それは、そうですね。それは、うん、小さい話がありますよ。2年間前、私はもっと日本語がわからないとき、本当に日本語で困っているとき、よく、よくではない。いつも、いつも、日本語で書いてあるページや本やいろいろなものは、日本人やネイティブのためのものを見ると、よく、よを見ました。でも、よの使い方をインターネットや文法辞書で調べるのは難しいですよ。難しすぎました。問題はもちろん、よの使い方が多いので、あ、よというページや説明を見つけても、見つけても、それは正しい使い方。それは私がさっき見た使い方かどうかわかりませんでした。ですから、インターネットや実証を使ってもわかるようになりませんでした。すみません、ようになる。ですから、今少しわかるので、できるだけ説明したくて、手伝ってあげたいと思います。それにどうして文法のビデオレクチャーが作りたいんですか？それも面白い質問。正直に話せば、私は文法を習ったり、勉強したり、考えたりすることに興味がありますよ。多くのね、私の経験から話せば、多くの日本語や外国語を勉強している学生にとって、文法を習うことは好きじゃないことですね。理由は多分難しいし、よく文法は使いにくいし、好きではないところですね。その人のために少し手伝ってあげられたら、それはいいことと思います。ですから、ビデオレクチャーを作っていますよ、今。これから、始める前のことが残っていますか？そうではないと思います。じゃあ、このビデオレクチャーは、参加のセクションがあって、セクションは一つずつ別の用の使い方を説明するつもりです。And if you're worried, I'm not going to explain the grammar in Japanese. From here, you're going to get a lot of explanations of grammar in English because if I were to explain to you Japanese grammar that you don't understand, in Japanese. That wouldn't be very helpful to you, I don't imagine. But there will be plenty of Japanese to come in the presentation from here. That's going to be in the form of the materials I've created for this presentation, which I'm just getting ready. There'll be plenty of Japanese there, and I'll be sure to go through all of that with you. But most of all, I just hope we can come to feel a little more comfortable with at least a few usages of yo. There's no way I could cover all half, a quarter of them. I don't even know if I could come up with a list I would consider all of them. Probably not. Probably never I'll be able to do that. But let me get this pulled up here. I think I can do this. Here we go. Okay. Excuse me. I hope you can all see this here, but I don't know how long the overall presentation is going to be. I might end up splitting this into parts. Like I said, there's three sections, each one on a different usage. We will see. You already can see whether or not I've broken this up. It'll depend on the overall length. Oh my, excuse me. I'm so sorry. On the overall length, I'll figure out how to break this up. But definitely for you, if it is still in one big piece, take some time to rest your brain in between sections, and you don't need to go through the whole thing in one go. It's probably a lot at this point. This is just so ingrained in me that I can't tell you whether this is way too much material to go over or whether this is way too little and it's just too simple. My brain has been permanently altered by YOL. But let's get into it just a bit here. So our first section is on 名詞のような名詞や名詞のように動詞. So noun のような noun and noun のように verb. I might use a little bit of grammar terminology from here. I think that knowing a little bit of grammar terminology is really, really helpful and even enjoyable, but it helps us to talk about the grammar we're learning in a much more comprehensive way, but you'll have it all presented on screen here for you. It will hopefully make it clear what I'm talking about, and I'll explain it in multiple ways over the course of this whole lecture here. So what I have here is just a very basic definition explanation, probably kind of similar to what you're used to seeing in a textbook or what you might find as a brief explanation on a website of the usage of noun, no yona, noun, and whatever in here is a thing like another thing, noun one like noun two. And I have a sentence here that illustrates that structure. Sensei no yona yasashii hito to shiriaitai desu. I want to get to know people who are nice like sensei. Now, if you can see this here, people who are nice, I've got that all in orange here. Yasashi hito. And then like sensei, this part in the cyan and the blue here, this is what we're creating using noun no yo na. And then we're modifying noun two, which is the whole noun phrase yasashi hito. But this on its own is not a very good explanation. It's not thorough enough if you're like me, at least. I prefer to understand a little better what's going on under the surface. I hate getting just here's a stock expression, plug a noun in here, and this is what it means. I would like to understand a little deeper than that, and hopefully I can help you with that. What we're doing here is, in reality, we are creating a na adjective that is a keiyo doushi. If we're talking about e adjectives, that's just a keiyoshi. You just drop the do here. But keiyo doushi is your na adjectives and some other kinds of adjectives, I think. But we've created that adjective meaning like the noun or noun like, or we'll get into precisely what it's supposed to mean. But in general terms, it's noun like. And the no we have after noun one, noun no yo na. This is only here because when we use a noun with the grammar point yol in this way, and to be clear, the only real unique grammar going on here is just the yol part. That's the only part that is doing grammatical legwork. The no here is just required to link the noun to yol. You'll have seen other grammar points that use no after a noun to link to whatever structure we're doing. It's the same here. So the no isn't even really a part of it, if that helps you to understand. And then in the same way, the na after is also not a part of it. It's just that this yo here with the noun in this structure is making a keidoshi, a na adjective. So we have a na after because we are modifying a noun after. So again, the na is only there because, well, if we want to modify a noun with a na adjective, we put na. Obviously, we already know that. So really, again, the grammar point is just yo. And if we put different parts of speech into these spots, which we absolutely can do, you'll see, just like with other grammar structures, that sometimes how you link it to the grammar structure might change. For example, if we had a verb in the place of noun one, which I think I have an example of a little later on, we don't need no. We don't need it at all. We can just run a dictionary form verb straight into yo and create this exact grammar structure. And in the same way, I think I mentioned in the section title, yeah, the yoni verb. If we want to put a verb here, well, actually, I think I explained that in more detail later, but you can probably figure out what I'm about to talk about there. Let's keep moving here, though. I think section one here is going to be the longest by a fair margin, but that's partly because I want to do some legwork of laying some clear understanding of what YOL is and what we're building here. And the next sections, I think, will go a little easier, just a little. So, what does it mean? Our na adjective that we've created with noun no YOL na, this big na adjective. Well, we could explain it as meaning an example. So, sensei no you na yasashi hito to shiriaitai desu. I want to get to know people who are nice like sensei. We have the noun phrase yasashi hito, which is our noun two, and this establishes a category, which is nice people, and noun one, sensei, is an example of that category of thing. So if we interpret the meaning in this way, you could rephrase the sentence to make it more clear. You could imagine saying something like just 優しい人と知り合いたいです。例えば、先生. And that would be perfectly clear. You could interpret this as having a very similar meaning to that, but we could also interpret this na adjective, sensei no yona, as being a point of comparison. So we're using sensei as a metric or a comparison here. Sensei no yona yasashi hito to shiriaitai desu. It's the same sentence in Japanese. I've written the English translation slightly differently to try and illustrate the kind of difference in nuance here. So we have people who are nice, comma, like sensei. That's our tatoeba sensei equivalent. Here I want to get to know people who are nice, like sensei, with these tasteful hyphens here to make it more clear that sensei here is a metric and we are comparing or explaining the people's niceness using sensei to compare against. So this is another way to interpret what exactly this means. And these really aren't that far apart in meaning in practice. Often it's equally fine to interpret it either way. And this really is a matter of nuance. But sometimes you will run into situations where it is less appropriate, makes less sense to read it one way or the other. This is just a way I've come to understand it a little, is that you can interpret it either of these ways. In the second case here, with the comparison, sensei no yona yasashi hito, there is actually something we could do to make it more explicit that we are using sensei to compare the niceness of the people, but we'll get to that just a little bit later. I think I have a slide on that. Excuse me just a moment. Forgive me the ginger ale. I have been sick to my stomach for I think maybe 4 days, but at some point I do actually need to just make this darn video. So I'm working through the pain. Okay. We have Rebun. We have some sentences here. I will have translations of these after, but this would be a great chance if you want. Most of the things in this I'm going to have translations for, but we'll work through all of it no matter what. It'd be a great chance after we read it. I won't go rush to put the translations. Take a moment if you want to pause and see if you can piece together what it means, and most especially see if you can piece together what our noyolna structure really means in this sentence. It'll be good for you, I promise. So what we have here is 世界中の子供たちは犬や猫のようなペットを飼うことが大好きです。Like I said, I won't rush to explain it, but take a minute to think it through. Pause if you need to. Our second sentence is 学生が宿題を忘れると先生は悪魔のような顔をしていて怖いです. And the last sentence we have here is this one is a little intentionally difficult, maybe more so obtuse. This is made with the express intention and purpose of making maximal possible use of the grammar structure all in one sentence. So obtuse is really the word for it, but that's part of the challenge, right? 福山さんのような意地悪な人が課長のような役職が受けられることで、私は世界が終わるような気持ちになった。Okay. Now, like I said, take a minute to think this through. See if you can piece together the implication, the meaning of all our usages of yona here. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull up translations here now. Our first sentence here, this one's pretty simple. Children all over the world, seikaiju no kodomotachi wa, they love owning pets like dogs and cats. So from here, we work the sentence from backwards back to the start, as we often need to translate directly from Japanese to English. They love daisuki, owning pets, petto kao koto, like dogs and cats. So this like dogs and cats, excuse me, like dogs and cats is inu ya neko no yona petto, pets like dogs and cats. So what we have here, inu ya neko no yona, this whole thing is working like one big not adjective, meaning like dogs and cats. And it's modifying the noun petto. So the meaning is not actually that complicated. Once you start to see it as inu ya neko no yona is just one big adjective functionally, I think it becomes a little easier to parse. I'll break some of these down a little more visually later if that helps to see exactly what I'm talking about when I say this is one big not adjective. The second sentence here, ah, well, I went ahead and shown you a little bit of the visual breakdown, but whenever a student forgets their homework, 学生が宿題を忘れると, this is our whenever と、先生は悪魔のような顔をしていて怖いです. It's frightening, 怖いです. Sensei makes a demon-like face and it's frightening. So sensei, obviously, sensei. Akuma, if you are, I'm sure you're familiar, but if you're not, this is demon, Akuma. No yona kao, a face like a demon-like face, a demonic face. And Sensei makes that face, and it's scary, it's frightening. So once again, Akuma no yona here is working as just one big, not adjective, meaning like a demon. I'm sorry if I'm being a little repetitious on that, but once you start to see it that way, this usage is really, really easy to understand. So I'm going to keep harping on it, and you'll be through this video soon enough, and you'll be able to stop hearing me say that. So don't worry. Last sentence here. So yeah, this is not easy. 福山さんのような意地悪な人. So this part here, oh wait, actually, this is a great time to move to the next slide. Yeah, okay, cool. I've gone and highlighted this to make it easier to parse. 福山さんのような意地悪な人. So all of this, 福山さんのような is working like, again, one huge not adjective meaning like Fukuyama. And it's modifying the noun phrase 意地悪な人, a mean person. A mean person is noun phrase modified by like Fukuyama. We get a mean person like Fukuyama. Ga, kacho, section chief, no yona, yakushoku, a position like in a company or in a job. Kacho no yona yakushoku ga ukerareru. He was able to get a position like section chief. So once again, kacho no yona is a not adjective that we've created using this grammar structure, and it's modifying the noun yakushoku. And so we have a position like section chief. Was able to get ga ukerareru koto de. It was the case that, something like that. You don't need to translate it literally, the koto de part here. But watashi wa 世界が終わる ような気持ちになった. I felt like the world was going to end. Now, I think I mentioned just a bit ago, you absolutely could put a verb before this yo na instead of a noun. And in that case, if you do that, you don't need no. So I didn't write owaru no yo na. That would be ungrammatical. We just say seikai ga owaru yo na. We can just run our verb directly into yo, and we get something that's the same exact principle here. Seikai ga owaru yo na, like the world is going to end. And kimochi, a feeling, ninata, it became the feeling, I had the feeling, or I felt as I translated, like the world is going to end. And you can do this with any verb you can imagine an appropriate situation for. Just run it directly into yona, and you make this na adjective structure. Let's see. In terms of using other parts of speech, I think I also mentioned this. We can absolutely, instead of putting na and then, excuse me, na and then a noun, like I have in all of these previous examples, we can put ni and follow that with a verb instead. Now, why does that work? Well, I think I said if you envision it this way, it's easy to understand. This is something we should remember about all na adjectives is that any na adjective full stop can be turned into an adverb just by replacing na with ni. So we have a keiyodoshi, a na adjective that means noun like. And like with any na adjective, na to ni, and we get a fukushi, we get a adverb, meaning in a noun like way, or I mean, there's a lot of ways to translate it, but it's just an adverb with the same meaning as the adjective would have, just a different part of speech, if you can follow along. It'll make more sense in practice. Let's look at this. So I think I've explained this pretty clearly, but the noun, of course, can be as simple or as complex as we want. So we can start with something pretty simple. Sensei no you ni deau hito ni zenyin eiga o saseru koto wa watashi no yabou. I've gotten a little bit flowery here, but I have crammed in all this unnecessary gunk in the middle just to illustrate that sometimes our adverb we create can become a little distant, a little separated from the verb it's modifying, but that doesn't present any problem. It's fine. The sentence structure is very flexible, but just be prepared. Sometimes you'll hear the adverb and you'll have to wait a little and keep it straight in your head that you're waiting to know what that adverb is modifying. Oh, and I didn't read the translation. It's my ambition to make everyone I encounter smile like sensei, right? So sensei no yo ni is an adverb. We are doing a thing in the way or similar to sensei, and the thing we're doing is eiga o saseru to cause a smiling face, to make people smile, right? And our noun is a point of comparison, sensei, to create our adverb. Now I said here, noun can be as simple as we want. On Meishi can be simple, it can be complex. Let's illustrate the complexity here, right? いつも学生を助ける先生のように, and then everything after that is the same. It is my ambition to make everyone I encounter smile, like sensei who always helps students, right? So this whole phrase back here, いつも学生を助ける先生, this part before sensei is modifying sensei, but all of this becomes a big noun phrase. And because we have a noun or a noun phrase, before yo, we put no, no yo, and then we have a not adjective. We want it to be an adverb instead of an adjective. So we go no yo ni, and it modifies our verb ega o saseru, right? So this whole thing here, like I said, can be freely modified to give a little more explanation of what our adverb we're free flowing on the fly creating is intended to mean. Let's see. Okay, so I have a conversation that I've written up here. So again, this would be a great time if you want to stop and pause if you feel like you might be able to tackle reading this on your own, as long as you can avoid getting that reflexive aversion to having a ton of Japanese text on the screen. But I will read through all of this. There is not going to be an English translation on screen, because we're going to work through what each sentence means together. And I've done my best for anything that, I don't know, I just am kind of guessworking what might be helpful to put some furigana on, and I've gone and done it. Hopefully that'll be helpful to you. We have here a conversation between A-san and B-san, and A-san, B-san are friends. They are classmates. And we will read what they are talking about here. Ah, B-san, おはよう。ごめん。B さんはテニス部に入っているの？うん。いつか首相のようなテニス選手になりたいんだ。どうして？実は選手 B さんとチームメイトたちの練習を見て楽しそうだったよ。うん。とても楽しいよ。僕らは大抵週に3日練習があるよ。でも A さんはサークルが嫌いだと思っていたんだけど、興味がある？いやよ、その通り。私はテニス部のようなサークルが嫌い。でも、趣味としてみたいんだ。テニスは面白そうから。B さんのような上手な選手に教えてもらえたら、絶対に大好きになるよ。そっか。じゃあ、A さんのような初心者を教えることは難しいけど、日曜日に都合が良かったら、僕は喜んで教えるよ。来年までに A さんはプロのようにテニスが上手になるかも。あ、それはちょっと B さんのようないつも忙しい努力家に対して面倒をかけることはダメだね。テニス部の中にきっと B さんのような上手なテニス選手が多いでしょう。誰か暇で都合が良かったら B さん紹介してくれない？やっぱり。テニスよりテニス選手に興味があるらしい。しょうがない。ちょっと助けるかも。So hopefully you follow along with at least parts of that, but we'll break down everything here. You've noticed already all the usages of the grammar point. I've gone ahead and just highlighted for you to make it easier to look at them. We have, B, good morning. Sorry, you're in the tennis club, right? B says, yeah, someday. And then we have our first usage here. It is, excuse me, 首相のようなテニス選手. So we have team captain. 首相のような like team captain. テニス選手 tennis player. A tennis player like the team captain. になりたいんだ. Someday I want to become いつかなりたい a tennis player like the team captain. 首相のようなテニス選手。どうして Why? Why are you asking me? 実は and truthfully 先週 B さんとチームメイトたちの練習を見て楽しそうだったよ。Last week I saw you, B, and your teammates practice, and it seemed fun. And B says, とても楽しいよ。Yes, it's very fun. 僕らは大抵週に3日練習があるよ。We usually have practice 3 days a week. でも、A さんはサークルが嫌いだと思っていたんだけど、興味がある。So, B says, but I thought you, A-san, I thought you did not like clubs, サークル. I thought you did not like them, but, だけど, are you interested? 興味がある? And A says, yeah, yo, no, it's not right. その通り. In that, literally in that way, but it's stock expressions, just like that, or like you said, exactly as you said. Exactly as you said, 私はテニス部のようなサークルが嫌い. We have our second usage here. Like you said, I dislike clubs, サークル, like the tennis club. It doesn't translate perfectly, but I dislike clubs like tennis club. And so we have テニス部, tennis club のような. It's our 形容動詞. With な, we modify the noun, サークル. でも、 shumi toshite, but as a hobby. If you haven't seen toshite before, it's the role it's intended to fill. It's shumi toshite as a hobby. Shite mitai nda. I want to give it a try. I want to see. Tennis wa omoshiro sou kara because tennis seems interesting. B さんのような上手な選手に教えてもらえたら So, again, we have another usage here. B さんのような like B, 上手な選手. So we're modifying the whole noun phrase here. 上手な選手. Skillful player like B. A skillful player like you. に教えてもらえたら if I am able to be taught, if I'm able to, we have 教えてもらう. If I'm able to receive the teaching, and we have もらえる, the potential form. So if I'm able to receive being taught by a skillful player like B, literally, 絶対に大好きになるよ. I will definitely start to love it. I will become love it, literally, but I will definitely start to love it. And B says, そっか。じゃあ、A さんのような初心者を教えることは難しいけど、So he says, あ、そうか。Well then, じゃあ。And then we have our next usage. A shoshinsha is a beginner, a total newbie. So teaching a beginner, oshieru, but a beginner, shoshinsha, like A-san. A-san no yona shoshinsha. Hopefully you're starting to grasp the pattern here. We have A-san, our noun, no yona, we've made it keiyo doshi. We put na to modify the noun, shoshinsha, and we have a total beginner like A. を教えること、teaching a total beginner like you は難しいけど、I'm sorry, it's difficult. But 日曜日に都合が良かったら、if your schedule's good, if it's convenient on Wednesday, 僕は喜んで I would gladly 教えるよ. I would gladly teach you. If you're good to do it on Sunday. Did I say Wednesday before? Sunday. I don't know if I said Wednesday before. I think my brain's starting to go. Okay. 来年までに A さんはプロのようにテニスが上手になるかも. So we have by next year, maybe it's かも. By next year, maybe A さん will become, and then what we have is プロのようにテニスが上手. So this is a little different here. This is I should probably have actually highlighted Ninaru here because what I'm really trying to illustrate here is that pro no yoni, instead of an keiyodoshi, instead of an adjective, which we would put na after to modify a noun, we're actually really modifying the verb naru. You could also say we're modifying the adjective jozu. I do have a slide talking about modifying adjectives in just a minute, so we'll explain that a little more, but we could also, for simplicity's sake, also just imagine pro no yoni is an adverb meaning like a pro, modifying the verb naru. You'll become like a pro uh, in that you're skilled at tennis. You'll become skilled at tennis like a pro. Maybe by next year. And A-san says, それはちょっと. That's B さんのようないつも忙しい努力家. So what we have here is a very simple keiyodoshi modifying kind of a little bit of a complex noun phrase. Bisan no yona, as you're familiar with by now, is just our keiyodoshi. We have na after it because we're modifying a noun. Now, the noun we're modifying is really doryokuka, but we've already made a big noun phrase out of it. And itsumo isogashi doryokuka, a hard worker, doryokuka, who is always itsumo busy, isogashi. A hard worker who is always busy, like B. So we're kind of churching it up a bit. We're asking for a favor. So we're talking B up just a little bit here, aren't we? And then に対して towards mendo kakeru, causing trouble, causing a pain, being a nuisance, making work for him. B さんのようないつも忙しい努力家に対して面倒をかけることはダメだね。It's no good. It's no good to cause trouble for a hard worker who is always busy like B さん. And then we have テニス部の中にきっと B さんのような上手なテニス選手. I think this is actually, yeah, this is actually the same as very close to the same as previously, but uh, skillful tennis players like B-san. There are surely, I should translate, in the tennis club, テニス部の中に surely, きっと B-san のような上手なテニス選手. Oh, excuse me. Surely there are tennis 選手, there are tennis players, 上手な, there are skillful tennis players, B-san のような, like B-san. Surely there are skillful tennis players like B, or in this case, surely B-san のような上手なテニス選手が多いでしょう. Surely there are many. 誰か暇で if someone's free, 都合が良かったら oh, I should really say, if someone's free and their schedule is good, then B-san 紹介してくれない? Could you introduce me? And B-san says, あ、やっぱりテニスよりテニス選手. So after all, after all this, it seems that this yappari, this always hard to translate yappari, more so than tennis, less so tennis, more so tennis players ni kyomi ga aru rashi. It seems like less so, I'm sorry, it seems like more so than tennis, you're interested in tennis players. しょうがないね。ちょっと助けるかも. Can't be helped. I might help you a little, but clearly this is begrudging. All right, I think we can move on. We have some final notes for the section. There's a couple things I just want to clear up. This is probably also a part of why this is going to be the longest section, but I just want to make sure I give you all the details, that this doesn't become the kind of thing that appears in a footnote that 95% of people don't read, and they say, I never learned this, and then it's like, well, in theory, you should have. That's terrible. So we can skip the noun to completely. We don't need it. We could just say noun no yo da or this. And that's because this is the same as any not adjective. You could just like you could say instead of, shizuka na and a noun, you could just say shizuka desu. We could do the same thing here. So I've written up a sentence here. 今日私の彼氏はこんにゃくを買ってくれて、その後プロポーズしてくれた. I don't know if I put in English for this, but today my boyfriend bought me a kitten and then after that proposed to me. And what we say after that is 夢のような日だ or just 夢のようだ. So it was a dream-like day or it was like a dream. We could just say yume no yota. We could modify probably a couple nouns in this situation with yume no yona, but I just chose he for simplicity. We can just simply say yume no yota. It's like a dream. And I think yume mitai you'll see a lot. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm spoiling something. It's coming up ahead, but there's a related form to this that you'll see more often than yume no yoda. Just a sec. Mouth's starting to get dry. Need to keep the ginger ale flowing too for my stomach. Okay. Yes, here it is. All of this is just like mitai, which you have probably encountered well before you start learning about usages of yo. And if you encountered this in Genki, you learned it way before you started learning about using yo, I think. It's been a while, but it's actually basically the same function. Sensei mitai na hito, right? So this should be familiar to you if you have gone through Genki. I think, does Genki teach you about Now I'm forgetting if it teaches you that you can just put na after it to modify a noun. It must. Surely it must. Maybe in one of those terrible footnotes I mentioned. You could say sensei mitai na hito, or just like I said on the previous slide, you could also drop the noun after, and you could just say sensei mitai da. This is the same as using no yo. So if you remember the sentence I introduced this with sensei no yo na hito, or sensei no yo na yasashi hito, sorry. Then if we look here, we have sensei mitai na yasashi hito to shiriaitai desu. This is a completely valid, grammatical, totally sensible, totally normal sentence. It just happens that you can replace no yo noun meishi no yo na with meishi mitai na. And another example here is I have here is Rosu. So that's abbreviation for Los Angeles. I'm trying to remember the full length name in Japanese for Los Angeles is something terrible, some horrible katakana abomination that I can never remember. And I swear there's like two or three different ways of perverting the transliteration of Los Angeles. So I just say Rosu, just like a lot of people just say LA, right? So Rosu mitai na toshi, a city like LA, or you could say toshi wa Rosu mitai da, and this is again dropping that second noun. We don't technically need it. We could just say the adjective we created, toshi wa Rosu mitai da. And then we look at this, we could make a sentence like Rosu mitai na toshi ga oi. There are a lot of cities like LA, which is probably not true. Then, sorry, I'm peeking ahead again. Not really. I'm just doing this on accident. Yume mitai. This is what I was talking about. Let me go back now. When I was talking about here, yume no yo da sounds a little stiff. Yume mitai da. This is very common. I think if you go and search this on the internet, you're going to find a million like SNS posts, social network posts, and you'll find this everywhere. But 彼氏はプロポーズしてくれて、今日は夢みたいだ. So my boyfriend proposed to me, and today was like a dream. So what is the difference then? You can't just say mitai is the same as no yo, na, da, ni, and leave it at that. Yeah, you can't because there is one difference, and this is the important part is formality. Mitai, even though it's extremely, extremely common, is casual. Whereas no yo na ni da is more, I mean, it's not formal, but excuse me, it's a little more polite than saying mitai. Mitai is definitely casual. Using no yo is going to be more standard for someone you don't know or aren't close with, or your safe bet. You always default to what isn't going to insult someone that much before you use some casual expression. That's why I said that Yume no Yoda sounds pretty stiff, because in a situation where you're talking about your dreamlike day with your boyfriend and a kitten and a proposal, talking in a polite way sounds a little out of place. So probably Yume Mitai sounds more normal. But both are fine. Both are grammatically completely fine. I think, yeah, we have one more section final note here. Noun no yoni, this can modify. Is my camera in the way? I don't know. Let me move me. Maybe just here's fine. A noun no yoni can modify an adjective. It absolutely can. Now, I know what you're thinking is, well, duh. Of course. Of course, an adverb can modify an adjective. It can in English too, you dummy. Which, to be fair, that is kind of how I feel now that I look back at it. But when I was trying to double check everything for this, because I've done my best, it's so tough because you rely on your own understanding you've developed, and then you can't exactly say, well, this is exactly where I learned this and came to understand it. You have to rely on what you do understand and assume that it's right. But it can modify an adjective. So this is there's a textbook called Try. It's a textbook series. It's something I've been working with for a bit. There's one for each of the levels, N5 through N1. I just happened to encounter this by pure chance. Try N3 on page 50. There is an example sentence. I think there's actually two in there that do this. but it's the only time I can recall recently, and the only time I've been able to find while I'm working on this that is an example of using noun no yoni to modify strictly an adjective, a case where it's definitely not modifying a verb. It's definitely modifying an adjective. Every source I check on using this grammar structure, I could never find, not only like couldn't find an example sentence that is using no yoni to modify an adjective. I couldn't find a source, that's breaking down what parts of speech you can use something with. I couldn't find a single source saying, yeah, you could put an adjective, you could use this to modify an adjective, of course. So I really became unsure. I came to doubt myself, even though I know that you can. Adverbs modify adjectives. I see it all the time in English and in Japanese. But let me just get back to this sentence here. Let me get off this personal rant of my struggle to prove to myself that it's completely fine to use noun no yoni to modify an adjective. The sentence from the book is Tsuyu no yoni ame ga oi kisetsu wa sentaku mono ga kawakanakute komarimasu. This ga here is actually no in the textbook because you can often see grammatically what would be a ga replaced with no for like flow reasons, for sounding better. It's just a phenomenon that happens. I don't deeply understand it, but sometimes we'll just see grammatically this is clearly where ga should be. You'll just see no, sometimes to prevent having ga too many times in a sentence. Sometimes I guess it might sound a little less stiff. I don't know. But tsuyu no yona. So I'm sorry, tsuyu no yoni. So like tsuyu, like the rainy season, no yoni, ame ga oi. No yoni here is modifying the adjective oi. Kisetsu, season wa sentaku mono, your laundry, it doesn't dry out. Ga kawaku nakute, and you struggle. It's troublesome. It's a pain. We have modifying oi. There's no verb here that it could really be modifying feasibly, right? We're definitely seeing tsuyu no yoni, this adverb like tsuyu, modify the adjective oi. And this is totally acceptable and on the table when we are using no yoni just as we would with any adverb, but you could totally use this to modify an adjective. So the translation will be something like seasons that are rainy like tsuyu, or you could imagine it as meaning something like seasons that are rainy to a similar extent. You could phrase this more clearly with a structure like, tsuyu to onaji gurai ame ga oi. And that would be a little more clear in like we're saying that it's about the same level of raininess, but this is also perfectly fine. It's very, very good. I like it. Clearly, it's natural sounding because it was in a Japanese textbook, so I was very happy to know that it doesn't sound painfully clunky either. And I've gone and written, oh yeah, I forgot to put this here. I put this here. I forgot to explain. If this no yo were modifying kisetsu, which you could totally do, it would be fine. It would be tsuyu no yo na ame ga oi kisetsu. And then this keiyo doshi we've created of tsuyu no yo na would be modifying kisetsu. But because it's a ni, it can't be modifying a noun grammatically. It has to be modifying a verb, or in this case, an adjective. I've gone and, if I can get to display, yeah, written an example sentence here. It's the same sentence, well, it's almost the same sentence both times. アメリカの店にはブラックフライデーのように忙しい日が少ないです。And then アメリカの店にはブラックフライデーのような忙しい日が少ないです。So here we have like Black Friday is our keiyo doshi or our fukushi. It's our adjective or our adverb. In the case where it is an adverb, ブラックフライデーのように it is modifying the adjective isogashi. So this is days, he, that are busy like Black Friday. We're modifying the adjective busy. But then if we change this ni to a na, if it's a na, it's got to be modifying a noun, in which case it's probably meant to modify, and it is meant to modify the entire noun phrase, isogashihi, busy days. Busy days like Black Friday, as opposed to days that are busy like Black Friday. So they are very similar sentences, but the nuance is a little different. There is a little difference in meaning here, and it's important to understand because grammatically it's working in a completely different way. You know, you have an adverb modifying an adjective or verb versus adjective modifying a noun. You need to pay attention to these kinds of things. Let's see. Oh, I have another slide on this. Excuse me. Talking so much. Hmm. Let's see. What am I going on about here? I don't think I even really need this slide. Yeah, sensei no yona. Sensei no yona yasashi hito. This is our original basic beginner sentence here. Sensei no yona is a keigo doshi, and it's modifying the noun phrase yasashi hito. Or you could imagine it as only modifying the noun hito, I guess, if it helps you. But it's better to get comfortable with the idea that we're modifying the whole noun phrase, because really that's what's happening. Sometimes it's a little, I don't know, scary to hear about. We're treating this whole thing, this whole noun phrase as just one big noun, but that's what's going on. That's life. Sensei is being used in reference and comparison to yasashi hito, or nice people. If we take this sentence and we replace na with ni, we know when we have ni, no yo ni, we have created an adverb. So we have to be modifying a verb or an adjective, or I don't know if it's any other parts of speech an adverb can modify. I would have to look that up, but that's not important. Sensei no yo ni, we have to be modifying an adverb, sorry, an adjective or a verb. There's not really a good verb to modify. It doesn't make sense to imagine this modifying shiriaitai. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe it does. It'd be a very different meaning. It's a very different sentence in that case, I think. I can maybe construe a very awkward sounding way that might somehow be a real sentence with that meaning, but no. Sensei no yo ni is clearly modifying the adjective yasashi. So people, hito, who are nice like sensei. The like sensei, sensei no yo ni modifies the adjective yasashi, and this whole thing modifies hito. So we have this big, big construction that just modifies the noun hito. But hopefully you can see how it breaks down into a couple different component parts here, and it's not too complicated in reality. And so here, as opposed to where we have sensei in reference to or comparison to the nice people, sensei here is being used in reference to the niceness of the people because, excuse me, we are modifying yasashi, nice, not yasashi hito. They seem similar, but they're really not the same. Sorry, I'm just debating myself on even how similar they seem. I don't know. Maybe they seem more similar to you. I'm starting to feel like, oh my gosh, it's so natural. This usage of yo, it doesn't even hardly need explaining, right? But no, they seem similar probably, but they're not the same, and there are times when that difference is important. I promise we're almost done with this section, but this is the longest section too. So hopefully after this will be a little quicker. I've gone and put together a quiz for you because I care about you and you're learning so much. So I've got a couple questions. I think three. 下の文の中から例文に一番近いのを選びなさい. From the below sentences, please choose the one that is most close to the example sentence. And our example sentence, our 例文 here is 私のクラスで毎週 JLPT のような試験 exam を受けます. And then we have a whole five options, right? 私のクラスで JLPT に似ている試験を受けます。私のクラスでは JLPT を受けようと思います。私のクラスで JLPT を受けます。私のクラスで JLPT を受けるために試験を受けます。私のクラスでは JLPT 通りに試験を受けます。Now, again, take a moment. Please pause it if you like, if you don't already have the answer, and think about which of these is the most similar. Hopefully, it should come pretty quickly. It is indeed the first one here. Our example sentence is translates something like every week in my class, we take exams like the JLPT. And our first sentence here is in my class. I dropped the my shoe from all of these because it's just not important. We take exams that resemble the JLPT or are like the JLPT or are similar to the JLPT. It's this magical verb nidu that means all of those things and more, but that are similar or resemble the JLPT. That is clearly the most similar to our example sentence here. Everyone after this kind of has a completely different meaning, you've probably noticed. But let's keep moving. We have,下の文の中から最も他にない文を選びなさい. From the below sentences, please select the one that is most not like the others. So most unlike the others. Which of these is, one of these is not like the others, right? Our options are,人間には犬の走り方で走るのが難しい。人間には犬のように走るのが難しい。人間には犬で走るのが難しい。And 犬のように、人間のように犬みたいに走るのが難しい。So take a moment if you need to and pause, but figure out which one of these is the most unlike the others. Answers coming now. Of course, it is number 3. Each of these, 1, 2, and 4, all essentially imply the same thing. They mean the same thing. I've used this mainly to illustrate to you how these different structures can convey the same meaning here. So, running in the way, the hashirikata of a dog's way of running, de running. Running in the way of a dog's running is difficult. And then number 2 and number 4 are actually more or less the exact same thing, but like I said before, we have inu no yoni and inu mitai ni. These are the same thing. One of these is casual and it's mitai. One of these is less casual and it's inu no yoni, but hashiru no ga muzakashi. And both of these are adverbs modifying hashiru. This one, inu de hashiru, of course, this is almost nonsensical. What on earth are you trying to say? Running as a dog? This is, maybe it makes sense in like an Animorphs book, perhaps. I don't know. And then we have one more question. This is a little bit more of a conceptual question that I've put in here for you to think about. What is the difference between the following sentences? And I was a little unsure about if this was going to illustrate the point I'm trying to convey clearly enough, but a very, very capable, very learned peer of mine looked at this and immediately saw exactly what I was conveying and put it way better than I ever could. So I'm pretty sure this should get across what I'm trying to get across here. So we have two sentences. カリフォルニア州にはロスのような大きい都市が多いです。And カリフォルニア州にはロスのように大きい都市が多いです。And I have another question down here. Which makes more sense and why? And that's kind of a vague question, but hopefully, if you see the difference here, you'll be able to piece together what I mean. What makes more sense? So take a minute to think this through and read them and think about. If you can figure out what they mean and the difference, it might become clear. If you've had a moment to think about it, I'll go ahead and explain a little here. Our first sentence, you'll notice this is that same thing I did earlier where I've replaced na with ni directly, but the entire sentence is the same otherwise. Excuse me for a second. Ah, starting to catch up with me a bit. We have rosu no yona oki toshi. So oki toshi is a whole noun phrase, big cities. Rosu no yona, meaning like Los Angeles, is a big kyo doshi. It's a big na adjective. We have a na to modify the noun phrase oki toshi. Big cities like Los Angeles. Ga oi, there's many. And then below we have rosu no yo ni oki toshi. So this is an adverb, right? It's a fukushi. And we are modifying the adjective oki. So we have rosu no yo ni oki. And this whole thing really is acting like one big adjective modifying toshi. So instead of big cities like Los Angeles, we have cities, toshi, that are big like Los Angeles. So rosu no yo ni ookii toshi ga oi desu. So this is saying something more like there are lots of big cities that are like Los Angeles. Big cities that are resemble or are similar in some way, they're like Los Angeles. Or maybe it's just trying to say there are lots of big cities. For example, Los Angeles. But this second one here, we are explicitly using Dosu, Los Angeles, as a point of comparison to modify big. So there are lots of cities that are big like Los Angeles. Dosu no Yoni, like Los Angeles, is in comparison to bigness, to oki. So what we're saying here is there are lots of cities that are big like LA. Now, which of these makes more sense? Excuse me. Hmm. Lots of cities that are big like LA. Now, which makes more sense? Hopefully, you figured this out by now, but it's the first one that makes more sense. There are big cities that are like LA. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You could argue some city or another is like LA. Someone might say, "Oh, I've lived in this city and it's got the same exact feeling." It's a big city like LA. It's a rosu no yona ookii toshi. But to say rosu no yoni ookii toshi, that in California there are many, that's not true, and that doesn't make sense. There are not many cities in California that are big like LA. I think the closest is like LA is like 1.5 times the size. So there's no city in California that is big like LA. This makes no sense, or at least it doesn't make very much sense. So our second sentence here is much less sensical. Dosu no yo ni oki toshi. This is not a factual sentence. This first one here is totally fine and totally consistent with reality. I think that's everything for this section. I do think it's probably about time that I put a break in the video, and I will split this up into three different videos, one for each section, because this has been probably a lot to cover. So take your time, think about this. I don't know if you want to write down anything here or not, or just think about it, or just let your brain rest a bit. But I am going to call the section good there, and we will continue with Dainika. We're going to continue with section 2 on, yeah, no yo, sorry. Ah, ah, I'm giving away all my secrets. Doshi yo ni suru and doshi yo ni shiteiru. These two are not actually very different from each other, but they are a good topic to address on their own. So I will get back to you in just a bit.